There is absolutely one thing that really needs to be done. Tony needs to have an oil change. Oil change light came on the other day. It's probably been about a week now. I thought that it was coming, so figured I'd get over to the shop after I got everything I needed, get the oil changed, and see if maybe we could do like a DIY video on that. I don't know. So that being said, I really don't have a game plan for this episode or for today, except for changing the oil in Tony. So let's get at it. Okay, well, I'm at the shop, and it's going to be a tight squeeze, but I think I'm going to have just enough room to have all three of these cars in here and do what I need to do today. Going to have to move Petty Chevy over into this void here, and this is where I'm going to work on Tony. Let's go ahead and move some cars around. Might have just enough room. That's what I got to work with. Let's do it. Now, I really, truly, just barely, I think, have enough room to do what I need to do. Got Tony backed in with enough room on this side to walk around, and just enough room to get past Petty Chevy. I've got Volunteer pushed back as far as I possibly can. I'm still gonna need to back up a little bit because I need to get my Rhino ramps out so that I can get those in front of the car to make this a little easier. So let's go ahead and get some stuff out of the car and get set and ready to go. Now that I had the car up on the ramps, it was time to check the parking brake, check and make sure that the gear shift was in gear, and then pop the hood, and let's get started. Always forget where this is. There it is. When doing an oil change service on this car, I personally like to take off my air intake tube. This gives me a lot of access to the engine oil filter, and it just makes it all that much easier to get it out. Because it is a small engine bay, it is very cramped, and they don't give you a lot of room to start with. There's one quick disconnect clip here next to the air intake system, and a few other hose clamps along the rest of the system. Here's a better shot of that quick disconnect clip. Then up here at the top of the air box is one hose clamp that you loosen, or at least personally I loosen so that I can take off my air intake tube. This is the quick disconnect clip again, the rubber nipple for the vacuum feed. There is another hose clamp here on the rubber boot that I like to take loose. And then lastly, this hose clamp here on the turbocharger. Once you have everything loose and disconnected, go ahead and slowly and carefully remove your air intake tube. I like to separate my air intake tube from the rubber boot and then go back and get the rubber boot off the turbocharger separately. I take the time to look at the rubber boot itself and check for any rips or tears or wear to the boot, and then also check for any excess engine oil. The reason that I like to take all of that air filter tube off is because of where the oil filter is located. Right down here. You can see that it's not really in an ideal place, but it's not something that has to be overly complicated. Taking this intake tube off, even with including filming, took me less than 5 minutes. Helps me ensure that I can get to the filter where I need to, especially because I don't know if I have the appropriate socket size for this, but I'm going to see if I do, and if I do, I'm going to change the filter. I'm not going to do the oil change if I can't change the filter, but I'm going to make sure that I have the right socket. But that just gives you more space in this tiny cramped engine bay to at least get your hand straight down on it where you need to. Now that I have the front air intake hose off and I have access to my oil filter, I made sure to put my oil cap back on just so it wouldn't get any debris in it. Now, as of right now, what I'm going to try and do, this is easier in a shot, but I'm going to do my best. I'm going to try and jack the car up by the rear axle beam. I do have to be careful because the axle beam is further forward than the rear torsion bar or sway bar. So I have to make sure that I get onto that axle beam right, and I don't mess up my torsion bar. I might have to do it from the side, but let's go ahead and give it a shot. Alright, so I've got the car down on the jack stands. I do like to try and put my floor jack, this is just how I like to do it. I like to get the floor jack back up to where it was right before it lifts the car. So everything is still weighted down on the jack stands, however, the floor jack is all the way up just in case something were to happen to the floor jacks. I've got it as tight as it can go, so hopefully if something happens, it doesn't come crashing down on me. I mean, that's always a risk that you run, so just always try and do it as cautiously and carefully as you can. Now, the one thing that I like to do when changing the oil on any vehicle, especially if it has a cartridge or element style oil filter, not one that you spin on, is I like to try and make sure that I crack the engine oil filter before I drain the oil. This hopefully and theoretically will help the oil that's inside of that canister drain down while you're doing the oil change, and potentially make less of a mess for you when you pull the oil filter out. Especially being that where this engine oil filter is, I want to try and make as least mess as possible. Now, I did find that the oil filter cap is a 27mm socket, or a specific socket if you happen to have it in your oil change wrench filter socket set. But a 27mm does fit on top of the oil filter. Now, I do still have to be careful regardless of what I use, because there are two tabs on the outside of the engine oil filter that help keep the socket attached to it. You want to make sure that you do not break those tabs. One, you just don't want to break it. Two, if those tabs break, your socket may not stay on there and it may slip and round off the oil canister. Remember, the canister is made out of plastic, so you want to make sure to be careful as much as possible. I did drive the car here for about 15 minutes. It has been a little while since I have been setting everything up and filming the content, so that should mean that the engine temperature is about neutral. It's warm, but it's not hot and it's not cold. Hopefully that should keep any issues from possibly breaking the plastic canister at bay. Now that you're done on top of the car with your
oil filter and your oil cap and your air tube, and you're satisfied that you can get under the vehicle easily and securely, you do have to make sure that you remove this skid pan first. There are multiple bolts going around the perimeter of the pan. I do believe that they are 10mm bolts. I'm just gonna zip one here real quick to test. And they are 10mm. However you want to take those off, as long as you're careful with it. You can use an electric impact driver like I just used. You can use an electric screwdriver. You can use a bit driver if it's strong enough and nothing's rusted. Whatever you're comfortable using and it's not going to break anything, go ahead and do that. You can use a socket and a ratchet if you like. It takes a little longer, and there's quite a few of these to get to. I think it's only about 6. But let's go ahead and get stuck back into it and get all the rest of these off. Make sure you keep stuff out of your eyes. Either stay away from it or wear safety glasses. With the skid pan off, now we have access to our engine drain bolt. Be aware there is a cross brace that runs across right below the engine drain bolt. It's not ideal, I know, but you want to leave that cross brace in place. You're just going to have a little bit of a mess to clean up. It's not that big a deal. Either get some brake clean, a really good rag. You know, it still has to be a rag or a shop towel that you're comfortable getting dirty, but just make sure you clean it off well and you'll be perfectly fine. Now that you have your skid pan removed, you have access to the engine drain bolt. What I found is going to be easiest for me in this situation is to use a boxed end wrench, a 13mm, because I'm at the front of the car, and that's going to give me the leverage to push the correct way. I do also have a 13mm ratchet stubby wrench, just in case that plug happens to be tight. But now that you've got everything ready, go ahead and crack your drain pan bolt loose and get started. She's stuck on there. Well, at least it was tight. Now this is going to make a mess for me because I don't have a wider funnel neck to catch this in. Hopefully that's not really a big deal. You know what? I think before I do this, I'm going to get a big piece of cardboard. Alright, I've got my cardboard. Let's get ready for some spillage, eh? It's going to happen. I know it is. I'm not going to be able to fight it. I can't really do much because I got nowhere to do it. Just gonna try and get this as close as I can. Not so bad so far. Thankfully, though, there is at least a relief in that cross brace. So it's not fanning out too bad. We're going to leave that to drip for a little while, and I'm going to go try and change the oil filter. So now that I'm ready, I'm going to go ahead and get to my engine oil filter. I do have the cap from my engine oil drain pan so that I can at least put it in there as quickly as possible to still try and eliminate the amount of mess. But now that I've got it loose, I'm going to go ahead and take it out. So the filter came out separate, but honestly it looks like it had drained back enough and didn't really make a mess. There's one spot there. But I'm going to go ahead and change the filter element now. Okay, so now it's time to actually change your filter element. This filter actually ended up just staying inside of the housing. I don't know why. I think it may have been installed wrong. So I am at least going to check the filter, make sure there's no major particulates or anything broken with the old one, so that I don't miss anything inside of the canister. I do have a little parts bag here I'm going to go ahead and put this filter into, because right now I don't have any appropriate way to recycle these oil filters. I am going to have to bring it somewhere that can take care of that for me. Don't just throw them in your trash. You know better. So with the filter element changed, it's time to change the O-ring that's on the outside of the canister. What I usually like to do to get the old one off is just use some kind of hook pick or a small screwdriver. Take your canister, make sure to inspect it, and there's no damage there. There is a little cutout here. I don't think it's damaged. I think it is intentionally like that from the factory. So everything should be good. Just take your hook pick or small screwdriver, whatever you're using. Just be careful if you are using a small screwdriver. You don't want to damage the canister. I like to run my picks up to the edge of the canister so it's over top so that I can just use it as a lever, get the ring up, and then walk it aside, and it comes right off. So then you take your filter element and make sure to install it correctly. As far as how I believe and how I've dry fit this already, these tabs are to go on the inside of the canister. Snap it together. And then you get your O-ring out. Take your O-ring with your thumb, place the O-ring on the bottom ring of where it's supposed to be, or better yet, get it around the filter first, then pull your ring down to the bottom seating area. Don't use a pick for this, you don't want to damage this ring. Just use your thumb and forefinger, pull it around the canister until it gets down to the bottom of the ring, and then roll the rest of it down on there. Simple as that. The next thing that you really do want to make sure that you do, if you have the opportunity to do it, and you should, because you should have the appropriate engine oil. Take a small dab of engine oil, put it around the ring, clean engine oil with as clean hands as possible. Just wipe that around the ring. Doesn't need to be crazy. Make sure you're not imparting any extra debris or particles on there. And now that you have your canister, it's ready to go back in the car.
It's always a good idea before installing your filter to check for any foreign contamination or debris and making sure that you have a clear path to install your filter. To install the filter, I used my 27mm socket, a universal U-joint, and then a couple of extensions. Only make sure that the oil filter is snug and a little bit past snug, and then check with your hand to make sure that everything is fully seated. You don't want to tighten the plastic housing too tight because you don't want to break it, and you don't want to make it so you can't get it off in the future. With your oil filter installed, reinstall your air intake tube. Make sure to get everything installed loosely first before you tighten all your hose clamps, and make sure that your quick disconnect clip is fully seated.
Now when you're confident that your engine drain plug is clean, installed correctly, secure, and your mess is cleaned up, and you've got your skid pan fastened back up, make sure that you do not over tighten those perimeter bolts for the skid pan. They need to be tight, but you don't have to go crazy with them. When you're ready to add your engine oil, make sure that you know your manufacturer's specification for the engine oil. Specifically, I prefer to use Mobil 1's Advanced European Car Formula 5W40. I've always used Mobil 1 in my vehicles that are turbocharged, and I've never had an issue with them. That's just my experience. It's not paid presentation, it's not sponsorship. That's just what I like to use. And when you're ready, get your engine oil cap out of the way, somewhere where you know where it's going to be, that you're not going to forget it. What I typically like to do is either up in the engine wiper cowl or right by the engine hood latch. It's a lot easier to replace an engine oil cap if you happen to close the hood and break the cap than it is to replace an engine, because engine oil goes spraying everywhere. But when you're ready, grab your funnel, make sure that it is clean, insert your funnel into the engine oil fill. Then you're going to grab your engine oil and fill carefully. Make sure that you pour your engine oil slowly and with purpose. You don't want to have any major engine oil spills if you can help it.
With the engine oil filled to the appropriate factory specifications, in this case 4 quarts, remove your engine oil funnel. I like to have my engine oil bottle close by so I can put the funnel into the engine oil bottle and allow it to drain. Do not forget to replace your engine oil cap and make sure that it is fully seated. In some situations, the oil cap may click once to engage that it is fully unseated. Do not keep clicking the engine oil cap, no matter how tempting it may be. At that point, you want to make sure to check your engine oil level at least twice. Make sure to wipe off the dipstick first and then check your engine oil level. What you're looking for is at the top of the crosshatch section if you can help it. Wipe off the engine oil dipstick and check your engine oil level a second time, making sure that it is the same reading as previous. Once you're satisfied with your engine oil level, you can reinsert your dipstick and proceed to the next step.
And now, as long as you're confident that your engine oil level is checked at least twice before you start the vehicle and you're comfortable with the level that it's out, it's time to get in the car and start the car and let it warm up. However, first things first, we want to make sure that we reset our engine maintenance light. That's actually relatively easy in a Chrysler product or Fiat product. It's all family at that point of this era of vehicle. First thing to do is to press your foot down and depress the clutch pedal. Put your foot on the brake, because remember, you may still have your car in gear. And then as you're going to do this, you turn your key to the on position, but you do not start your car. Keep your foot pressed on the clutch pedal if you can help it. Turn the key over until you hear it chime. Take your foot off the brake and pump the gas 5 times. That should be enough to reset your light. Now, you should only have to pump it 3 times. However, what I've found is if you pump the gas pedal 5 times, you're actually making sure that the pedal was pressed enough times and the maintenance light was reset. Now let's check and see and make sure that our maintenance light has gone off. Remember, clutch in, foot on brake. Your car may still be in gear. If you're comfortable that you are secure on your jack stands and your ramps, you can take it out of gear. I'm going to keep my foot on my brake, so I don't think that anything is going to go anywhere, and I'm secure with my jack stands and Rhino ramps. I'm going to go ahead and turn the key to the on position, foot in on the clutch, foot on the brake. There is no warning light currently. I'm going to go ahead and start the car. Now, if there were to be a light, it would be an amber triangle with an exclamation mark right underneath of that airbag. I do not see that light on, so it should mean that our maintenance light has been reset. I'm going to go ahead and start the car again and let it run for about 5 minutes. I'm going to do that so the engine has enough time to get up to a decent temperature, and then that way I can check my engine oil level and make sure that everything should be squared away. Now we wait. And then after approximately 5 to 10 minutes of letting the engine run, turn the car off and double check your engine oil level again. As long as your engine oil level does not exceed over the cross-hatched section, the top portion of it, you should be fine. If you are also in between the cross-hatched section, in the center of it, that is also considered a safe zone for your engine oil level. But if you feel more comfortable bringing it to that top level, go ahead and do so. And at that point, you can then bring your vehicle off of its Rhino ramps or jack stands, however you've done it, and everything should be set and ready for you to go. Your oil change service on your 2012 Fiat 500 ABARTH is now finished. If you like this maintenance video, be sure to make a comment down in the comment section down below. Let us know what you liked about it, what you didn't like about it. If you just want us to stick with the cool Legends car build stuff too, let us know that. We'd be more than happy to hear from you guys and appreciate any feedback, likes, and shares that we can get. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel, New Yankee Auto Systems, and follow us on all of our socials. For now, see you on the next one.